All right, welcome. What do you want us to say about Jason, Mr. Jason?
I mean, Jason, your official title, President of the UPA. Is that correct? UPA-A. Because there's a UPA and a UPA-A.
Did you come up with a UPA-A?
So if there's ever, like, who wins if there's ever a UPA? Because UPA stands for United Pickleball Association of America.
Correct.
What if there's ever a United Pickleball Association of Asia? Who gets the A?
We get the A. It's in the bylaws.
We get the A?
They get the A. That makes sense.
How does Canada feel about that A?
Well, America includes Canada, right? Americas.
Americas.
Yeah.
All right.
So he's Canada too.
We're set.
Yeah. So, so go ahead.
Welcome, everybody, to a very spontaneous interview with the one and only Mr. President Jason. Thank you for joining us. We have a lot of questions to ask you today. And so hopefully we can bring some clarity to the fans and the players and everything like that. And if there's anything else you're wanting to address or talk about, we're more than happy to discuss that with you guys as well.
So I think, Jason, just starting out, give us because I think most people associate you with the kitchen, right? Give us a little background of your start in pickleball and kind of how the kitchen came to be, your role with them, and then kind of how you got into the UPA.
Yeah, so at the beginning of COVID, I started playing pickleball like a lot of people did, and fell in love with it immediately. I had been advising Jared Paul, who started the kitchen, on a different business that he had. And as that came about, we both started playing pickleball, and we talked about it. And he said, "I'm gonna start up a little Facebook page on pickleball and see if we can't find some people to play in Austin." And he's in Austin, I'm in Atlanta. And I thought, great, go for it. Who knows what's going to happen in the world of social media, but it keeps your muscles flexed and keeping a finger on the pulse of what's happening. And as he started that Facebook page, it grew and grew and grew. And eventually I jumped in because it had taken on a life of its own. But back in the day, I remember when we got to 2,000 people and we thought, wow, this is really something. There's something going on here. So that was the beginnings, kind of the origins of the kitchen. But obviously I got deeper and deeper into the world of pickleball, and it just kind of consumed me, much like it has a lot of people. But it was a great opportunity to grow with the sport. I always look back at, thinking about being there at the beginning of the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA, and kind of fantasizing about those opportunities that they come along once in a lifetime. And I think that's what we have here with pickleball, is that we have this opportunity that there's infinite growth ahead of us. It's really a magical sport, and it's so much bigger than just the professional ranks. It consumes everybody from all the way down to the rec players. Kids are playing it, seniors, obviously. So just a great opportunity to be involved.
So for you, how did you kind of make that transition then? So from the kitchen to UPA, did they approach you? Did you approach them? I guess, yeah, where does that come from that? Because, obviously you're very ingrained in the sport. The kitchen is a huge part of the sport. Anybody who's on Facebook, right? The boomers love Facebook. So how did that come to be, I guess, to where PPA or, said, hey, we need a governing body and Jason's the guy?
So I obviously was pretty close with Connor, just from a back and forth, and everybody really. I talk just like you guys, talking to everybody all the time, trying to figure out, keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening. So when going back to the EVA foam paddles, go back to the Vice, go back to some of the Hoodefs. This is 2 U.S. Opens ago. I brought one of those Hoodef paddles down and just I was on a mission to show people how hard those paddles hit. And I just thought there was an inherent danger of making paddles that were not USAP approved, that could hit the ball harder than you could ever expect a ball coming at you. And I recognized that there were issues out there. And so as paddles got faster, delamination became a problem, core crushing became a problem, and we just started seeing the sport change. I'd like to think I was one of the more outspoken people about that, and including the Yola Gen 3s. This is where it gets messy, because Yola was a client of the kitchen, still is. I removed myself from the kitchen. I have a little equity in it because we started it together, but I don't have any day-to-day activities.
So you still have a little equity, but you don't do any day-to-day anything.
Correct. I've lost my Facebook privileges. I don't have any managerial.
Do you think, I mean, just, this is started off hot. Do you think that's a conflict of interest at all?
No, because I don't have anything to do with it. I mean, there's a small piece of equity that I have, but it's not a ton. Okay. And I don't have any control over it anymore. So if someone writes something, I can't even pull it down off the kitchen.
Can I buy that equity from you?
Yes, you can.
How much? How much are you valuing it at?
I'll talk after.
Would you trade a pudgy penguin for it?
Me and Jared are tight. We're homies.
Yeah, we could roll you guys right up into the kitchen. It'd be perfect. So I think that's how it got started. That I was talking a lot about paddles. I was being and this is going back to that. So Yola was the client and still is a client of the kitchen. But I was not real pleased with where we were heading with the power that those things had in them. And it just felt unfair. It felt like it wasn't as much fun to play against those. Same thing, we know the paddles that hit hard, right? We saw it with the gearbox. We saw it with some of these EVA foam paddles, but like, it just wasn't a fun game to play. And I was playing against guys, let's say I'm a 4-5, but I was playing guys 5-0s that were weighting up these paddles and hitting it as hard as they could at you. And it just, that's not enjoyable. And I thought all the fun that we were having and all that kind of joy that this sport brought was being diminished. And you start seeing how that has a knock-on effect down the line. And so I was very outspoken about it. And I'd spoken to Connor about it. And I think Connor was starting to get that something needed to be done. And he said, he basically asked, like, do you think you could, to take this and run with it? And I thought it was a great opportunity to do that. And I'm a bit of a rules guy. Like, I like pushing the rules. I've never been the guy writing the rules, but I'm always looking for an edge. I'm a competitor. So I understand, where to look when we're trying to, get around a rule. And obviously right now there's lots of rules that we can continue to improve upon. So
let's go right into it. The big topic du jour, that means of the day, Tyler.
Okay.
So you know.
Is that Spanish?
Like soup du jour?
Is that means Chinese?
Soup of the day. Is the serve rule. So we just had MLP. We had all these players challenge Will Howells. Okay, the Will Howells rule. We had players challenging his serve, right? Talking about, because you can explain the difference, but MLP and PPA have slightly different serve rules right now.
They do.
And my understanding essentially is that PPA...
Essentially, MLP, all you have to be doing is hitting an upward motion. PPA is different.
Got to be below the navel, right, or whatever, when you make contact.
And also, there's no toss. So in MLP, you can toss the ball as high as you want.
Yeah.
Basically to the USAP rule, but no contact point height issue. So you can hit it all the way here. It just needs to be upward. So there's diminishing returns the higher you hit a ball. Like, you can't get speed on it the higher you go. So that's the thinking on the MLP rule.
Yeah. Is there a reason those differ?
I think we're trying to get it right. And I think that because we have two different, a league and a tour, we have the opportunity to kind of test and learn.
So one of them you don't care as much about, and the other one you want to make sure you do everything right.
No. I think
I'm just kidding.
Which one? I mean, I've gotten an earful from both of them, so I don't know which one is working better at the moment, but certainly room for improvement. And I think as players push the boundaries, which is great because that's where we see room for improvement. Quite honestly, right? If everyone just conforms, people are going to come along and exploit rules that are not written well enough.
So
we're seeing it right now. Yeah. And spin serves, that's another example.
Yeah. So, obviously, and Will's not the only one, right? Deckel has a big serve. Travis Rettenmeyer hits, his contact point is super high in MLP, but as long as it's in that upward motion.
Colin Johns was going pretty high.
Yeah. Colin Johns was essentially purposefully exploiting the rule.
But once again, it's legal in MLP, so it's fine.
And his point was he was trying to prove how ridiculous it was, but really, I'm not sure it actually proved that point. But what is the solution? Do you know a solution? Do you have a solution in mind? Is the serve not meant to be weaponized? Do we want to make the game less athletic, in the words of Tim Parks?
Yeah, I don't think we want to make it less. We certainly don't want to make it less athletic. We want it to be more athletic. So it's a fine balance, because I think that's the apprehension to going to a drop serve that doesn't look the most athletic, but it does get the point started, and that's the intent. So there's a balance between what we believe the intent of the service rule to be and how it gets put into practice by very athletic tennis players.
Yeah.
One of the main issues, and I've talked about this before, is the court spacing. I mean, even in New York, I mean, there's very limited court spacing. And so if people are doing these big serves, I mean, I'm already at the back of the court. Like, I'm touching the video boards when I'm returning most serves already. And then you throw in there those that do hit the bigger serves, then you're already out of space. And so
is that a possible solution to where maybe the minimum court size or space around the court increases? And
I don't think that's possible at this moment.
Can't provide that, then maybe you don't go to those venues.
Yeah, we're just not there yet, right? One day in the future, maybe a year or two in the future, we're going to have infrastructure all over this country that are going to be able to accommodate big tours like the PPA and MLP, and we're going to have space, we're going to have stadium seating, and it's going to be amazing. In the meantime, we are essentially doing just that, right? And it's a little bit like golf, where clubs are outpacing courses, right?
Yeah.
And you're driving right to the green on a par 4. We're a little bit in that situation right now. So we've got to try to figure that out. And there's a fine balance. Certainly, I think, one way to do that is to lower contact points, clear low to high, swing trajectory. And we need to figure out the language behind that, and then being able to have the officials call that with confidence, right?
So I think that's an issue too. I feel like the officials are a little bit neutered in a way. Like, they just can't, they don't, it's not clear, and they don't want to impact a match.
Correct.
Right. Unless they're 100% correct on something. And so I think that makes it tough.
Yeah. And I tell you what we did in the PPA, by lowering it, what we were seeing is people coming essentially 90 degrees, right? It's
in MLP or PPA?
I'm talking about a PPA prior to last.
Okay, gotcha.
When we've had a lot of rule changes in the PPA, but we started seeing basically forehands being hit as serves, and all you need is 1 degree upward motion at impact. And like I said, I'm a rules guy. I'm trying to push everything all the time, so I've been called for this a number of times. But we want to get away. This provides way too much of a benefit. If we brought it way down here, then it kind of doesn't matter if you're up. If you're a degree or 2 up over kind of here, it's much less impactful than being 1 or 2 degrees from the side. And so we want clear low to high versus side to side swing path.
Gotcha. And where are we in this process? Do you think we are weeks away or months away, or possibly next year
possibly Virginia Beach
before these come into effect?
Yeah, so PPA, I don't expect to see anything change from last week's rule. I mean, we changed it last week. Let's give it a couple of weeks to see if we can't, see some progress and get the officials on board and see the players start to adapt to it. MLP, I think this past weekend was a bit of a wake-up call, in that we don't want to see that again. And I think that having video replays after the conclusion of a point to go back to the serve feels like not a great precedent set. So I think that we'll take a look at that.
All right, I like it. I think moving on, you've pretty much answered all of that. The close call replay, amazing, incredible. However, there's this nuanced rule in it where
the 25%
rule.
So from the naked eye, obviously with the close call replay, you can see gaps between the line, but the ball will go over the line between the white line and the gray, for instance, and then they'll essentially say the ball is 25% over the line, so that's in. And there's a lot of interpretation left there. So what are the thoughts on that? Is that 25% rule? I understand it and why it's in place, but it's tough because essentially it's bad aesthetically. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think we're arguing about millimeters at this point, right? Which is a huge
for sure
improvement from where we were 1 week ago, right? Where we were watching a blurry image and thinking about something within 6 inches. So huge step forward. We're really excited about having it on, our courts. But we will certainly work to improve the rule that's in place. So right now, the 25%, we're looking at a fixed camera position, looking right down the lines. So when you look down the line, there's an overhang of a ball. We don't see the contact point. We can assume where that contact point is, but we know that the ball compresses differently for each shot, and it becomes difficult for the officials to make an accurate call when they can't see it actually make contact with the ground. So we implemented a 25% rule. If 25% or more of the ball is hanging over the line, that's considered in. Because of the compression, we basically, created a diameter that says it's half the ball. So there's 25% on either end. That was the rule. Clearly, we can make improvements to that, and we will. We will empower the officials in the replay booth to use common sense, to be able to see what angle the ball is coming from. I think we saw one with the ATP. Wasn't going hard. It never made it to the line. It was probably a few millimeters out. You couldn't see. But we know just, from seeing the trajectory of the ball, that is probably out. So we can call it as such, and we need to empower the officials.
I think the biggest thing you said is that common sense has to come into play, right? Like, I understand that they're bound by a set of rules, but it's some, and guidelines, and they're following those, and they're doing their best. But at some point, it's like, okay, that one was clearly out, and maybe it's the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, right? And it's like,
exactly.
We're just trying to get it right, and if you think that you got it right, let's get it right.
Yeah, there was one this last weekend in MLP New York. I believe it was the Vegas Night Owls versus, who was it, with Blaine Hovenier?
He's on Vegas.
Who was it?
Miami?
Maybe. Anyways, they ended up hitting a ATP, and Blaine called the ball out, and it got overruled to being in. And they showed the picture, and I mean, you could clearly see that it was out. However, it hung. The 25% was around.
Well, I think that was just the Night Owls' karma for firing Caitlin Kerr. I think that
Jim Kloss
was just like, hey.
Jim Kloss wants your job.
Jason, why haven't you guys hired Jim Kloss yet? That guy is a genius. Just ask him.
It's Jimmy's favorite guy.
So I think that one that you're talking about, Tyler, is exactly the one that I had in mind. That was clear, right? That one, that went over the line. It never got to the line. So it's an easier one to call. That's where common sense needs to come in. Let me say, the officials did a great job. They did exactly what we asked them to do. Now it's our job to improve upon those processes.
So when will you update those that literature, the wording?
Yeah, it'll be this week. It's already been written. Now we just need to put it into.
Nice.
So what is the new literature? Just if the ball is in, it's in. If the ball is out, it's out.
No, I think we still stick with that 25%, but you need to use common sense. There are certain instances that we can't predict, right? ATP coming from outside the court was something that we hadn't really anticipated.
Because the angle is different. It's not straight down the line. Now it's coming at an angle.
But even with that one with Blaine, you could see space, so it doesn't matter what angle it was coming in at.
Well, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying now, like moving forward.
Yeah.
You could see space, but it was still 25% over the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So could you see space? You couldn't really see space. You could assume where it probably hit. Is it a dime size? Is it a nickel? Is it a quarter? We don't have that answer because we're not underneath it. And so what we also want to do is we want to encourage close calls to be played. We don't want people to see 50-50 balls and call them out. That's what's happening now.
Oh.
I agree with that, but I was talking to a ref in tennis, and we were talking about close calls. Close calls happen all the time in tennis, and they said, technically, if you play an out ball an out ball, and you play it in, that's technically cheating. You're not playing it correct. You want to make the most accurate call at all times. So even if you are playing out balls, you're not being honest.
Is that why you made that call on MLP? The one
I wasn't the one who made that call.
The one that was a foot and a half in?
I wasn't the one who made that call.
All right.
No, look, it's very hard. Look, part of this whole problem is that the ball's moving really fast. The ball, kind of skids, compresses a little bit. Our minds play tricks on us. We're moving a million miles an hour. Our head's turning, and the ball's going 60 miles per hour, and we're supposed to make a call.
Yeah.
That's really a very difficult position for players of all levels to call. I know for myself, I know my mind plays tricks on me at times. I think I saw that. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
And at the pro level, you guys are playing for your livelihood. So there's additional pressure to call things out. And I'm not accusing anybody of anything. It's just human nature. It's in your,
Especially when the game gets tight.
When the game gets tight.
Line calls get tighter.
For PPA, they are only using this close call replay for center court at the moment. When will they be moving on to grandstand and center, or two courts?
good question. I actually don't know that. I know that we have all the equipment with us. So it's a matter of when we flip that switch. So I think let's get the rules right and let's get everything, sorted out. I think part of this is also.
So you're saying you guys already have the equipment. You just need to figure out stuff logistically.
Yeah, because even in Atlanta where it was implemented, we had one inside, one outside because we're moving in and outside. But so we had two systems in place.
Gotcha.
One is 120 frames per second, one is 240 frames per second. So yeah, we will hopefully move towards that before the end of the year.
Cool.
All right, so Jason, moving on, UPA-A. What are the goals, I guess, or the UPA-A? Like, we had MLP, we had PPA. They came together, right, merged to form the UPA, and then we have this other UPA-A on top of that, right, as the governing body over both, in essence. What are the goals of that? Like, is it pickleball to become an Olympic sport? Is it to worldwide domination? Like, what are the goals of the UPA-A?
The goals of the UPA are to get control of the rules, regulations, certifications at the pro level. So for PPA, for MLP, we were outpacing the growth of the regulation. And so we saw paddles kind of spiraling out of control, lots of issues with, core crush and delamination and, you name it, even foreign substances, as we saw. There's a lot of things going on. And I'd also say that much like in many other sports, you'll see manufacturers make particular prototypes for players, and it might not be the exact same thing that you're buying. It's very hard to manage that and to test those when we haven't certified the paddles in the first place. So we recognize that we needed to have a certification process in place so we could hold manufacturers and players accountable to make sure that what they're playing is what they had certified and that there's no kind of games being played amongst the paddles that are being played.
Are you only over paddles and equipment, or do you also do, like you said, substance and...
It's all the same, isn't it?
Yeah, rules and regulations, certification.
Gotcha. So you guys eventually would be in charge of substances and...
Like if you did drug testing, is there a drug testing?
Substances, what are you referring to?
Steroids of some sort, yeah.
PEDs?
Eventually that would come to us. We are, that is not something.
So I only have 1 year left of taking my stuff.
Wow. He's about to tell you that they're not even close.
Okay, so I'm good.
Right, Jason?
That is not on the roadmap just yet.
So there's a lot of us that are clean.
So you're going to let Hayden Patriquin continue to just get yoked.
He just laughs.
I mean, clearly that guy. All right. So, okay. So, paddles, another big topic. I think it's pretty safe to say now, just to be clear, we did not do anything with this. We left it alone, but it's everywhere now. The Selkirk letter. Okay. It's everywhere. It's been talked about. We did not talk about it because I'm not smart enough to evaluate that. So my first question, is Gary really that good of a guy?
He is a super guy. He is a cool guy.
Gary is a cool guy.
Okay.
Second thing is if you can address that, because obviously it was 4 pages. If you haven't read it, you can, other podcasts have talked about it. Other people have addressed it. But essentially, Yola came out with you can explain it a little bit. Yola came out with their Gen 3s. They ended up getting banned, right? And then
by USA Pickleball.
Yeah. And then they essentially said that the ones that they submitted to USA Pickleball were not the same. Mm-hmm. And then they came out with a mod, right? Which they're saying is different. Now, allegedly they were cut open on a different podcast and they're exactly the same. And now those ones are approved. Selkirk doesn't seem very happy about that because they feel like they didn't get I guess, a chance to, I don't know, what's the word?
Just a level playing field.
Yeah, level playing field, so to speak. And so they fired off a letter, and then they're obviously pissed about Pro Pickleball Labs and the way the testing's happening. So I guess all of that encompassing, like, what's the solution? How are we solving that? There was a big meeting recently, so we'll let you kind of address that, Jace.
Yeah, so you're right. If we go back just to articulate what happened, Yola came out with their Gen 3s. Then they hit the market. Clearly, they were very fast, faster than pretty much all the other paddles for the most part. And quickly, they were removed from the USAP approval. Now, the claim was that they had not gone through, or the claim in the lawsuit, at least from Yola, was that it was a clerical error, that they had sent in the wrong paddles at the wrong time, and it was a mistake. I don't know what happened. I'm not in that room, but they clearly had other prototypes in the system, the mod being one of them. So it's the exact same paddle for the most part, right? Yeah. And that just gets approved because there's no clerical error there, but it hits just as hard. So I'm not sure if the issue was that it hits too hard. That's not why it got banned. It wasn't because it hit too hard. There really are no speed limits right now from USAP. There is a small deflection test that doesn't really seem to capture much. So that's why we test on site every tournament for the pro game. And we certainly, we pull out a lot of paddles every week, and, there's certainly, some frustration about that of, manufacturers built to one spec from USAP, and then we held them to a higher standard with, less power. And so I understand that can be frustrating. And that's why we need to get rules across the board. We need to articulate them. We need to certify paddles. And that's what we're trying to do, is try to, create that level playing.
Is there truth to the claims, I guess, that PPL essentially is somewhat incompetent, and that the testing changes and like they're not really sure, I guess what we're asking is really what's the answer to that, because we've been to,
I'll say I work with Gary a lot, and I think he's a cool guy.
He's a good
cool
guy.
Gary's a cool guy. I'm sure he is. I've met Gary, actually.
So that's the joke. But he's hired an incredible team around him of engineers, statisticians, to do the work, and that's what we need him to do. And it's been very clear, like, he's not an engineer. So when they claim that, that's absolutely accurate. And, he shouldn't be having engineering conversations as kind of the facilitator of this program. But we have some of the best engineers in the world that are working on this. He is contracted with the University of Massachusetts, the baseball research lab at Lowell, Dr. Patrick Drain. We had in the room at that meeting in Atlanta that you're referring to, we had the 11 paddle manufacturers that are on our advisory committee, and they heard from these engineers exactly what we're doing, how we're doing it, how long it's going to take to roll out. But I think that calmed a lot of nerves of the manufacturers in the room to hear it and see that there's real science here, and that it's not, we're not getting our numbers from YouTube. That's, a kind of outrageous claim.
Two questions. One of them, we're backtracking a little bit, but your role with UPA, are you the only person there, or how many are in your group or work with you?
Yeah, it's for the most part, like, what's great about being part of this organization is that I have huge, infrastructure beyond just me. So when I need marketing help, or if I need finance, or if I need whatever it might be.
But dedicated to the UPA, is it just you?
Yeah, dedicated to the UPA-A, yes.
Okay. Gotcha. And then just giving you a little situation, I may have told you this before, but this has now happened 2 times to me at tournaments. I get a paddle tested, and then I keep it in my bag. I do not touch it at all. And then I get the same paddle tested the next day, and it doesn't pass. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we know that these paddles change, and it's whether it's atmospheric or, could be.
Is that the paddles, or is that the paddle testing?
Well, it should not be the testing machines. It should be the paddle itself. But you know what? It's not ideal because we're out in the elements. The testing at MLP this past week, did you see where they were testing?
I went down there, yes, in the basement, in the cellar. It was awesome.
I mean, it's like we are being put in places that are not optimal for pure testing environments, right? So we know that we are.
You know what they should do is they should see if they can get a spot on Annalie's bus and just drive that. It's at events anyways.
Great idea. Great.
Get some barbecue from, what's his name? Jeff? Jerry? Eddie? I don't know. The driver?
I think it's Scott.
Scott, that's it. Scott.
So I think that, what we want, as we progress in this, we're going to get better and better, right? We're going to end up, I would imagine these things will potentially be taken off site to the nearest hotel room, and we'll have a runner going back and forth, something like that, because it's not ideal. But I'd also say this, that these guys are figuring this stuff out as we go. There was no path to success here. They created these machines. They figured out how to test. And so that's actually quite remarkable that we've come as far as we have in about a year. So every week we learn something else, we apply it. It's all iterative, and we're making
Okay. Luckily, those paddles that passed and then did not pass were kind of my backup paddles, but had that been my primary paddle that I was wanting to use.
The reality is if Vulcan's not passing, something's wrong.
The reality. What do you guys do with all the illegal paddles? Do you guys sell them on the black market?
No,
or
they're
they're
like Super Bowl shirts for the losing team. They end up
in Africa?
in Ghana somewhere.
Yeah. No, we take them back to the lab and we look at them and try to figure out and reverse engineer.
Because in the beginning, maybe not so much now, but in the beginning, I bet you guys, no lie, probably had minimum of 50 to 100 paddles that did not pass. Minimum. You probably had over.
Bro, they're right there. They're on Jason's wall.
You guys probably had 200 to 300 per tournament that did not pass.
So, Jason, the UPA-A, one of the other things that was mentioned, and I think that this is actually a interesting question, is that the UPA-A is a for-profit entity, right? Like,
UPA-A is part of
UPA.
It is part of, yes, the bigger.
Yes. So of course UPA-A is going to be for-profit, and most governing bodies, obviously, the argument is that they're nonprofits so that they can stay unbiased.
Yeah. So national governing bodies, yes, but
yes,
bodies of sport, right? The NBA, which governs itself, the ML.
Yes. And that's the way that you guys are viewing that, right? That's the clarification on that.
At the professional level of sport, a lot of times these leagues have their own governance. And that's the way we are looking at us at the moment. For 2025, we are trying to govern the PPA and the MLP at the professional level. We're not trying to go beyond that just yet. Now, if governance does not catch up and we think that that's what we need to do, then we will continue to go down that trajectory. But right now it's just the pro game. So being for profit, one, I have no revenue goals. There is no pressure on me to try to generate income. But we are trying to just get paddles in check, make the rules right. And that's the mission right now.
So in terms of being a governing body, one of the big things that people always talk about is pickleball in the Olympics. And the one thing that always comes up is, number one, there has to be one clear-cut governing body, right? And then
federation, yep.
Yeah. And then there has to be, like, obviously a certain number of countries. I think it's like 80 or something. Is that one of the goals of the UPA?
No.
It's
not. It's not even, that's not at all part of our mission. I think it will come, and I think that, hopefully we do play a part in that, but that's not any of our objectives, right now agenda. Yeah. But I think it's a byproduct. We do our things properly, and we get it under control, and we see that, the sport can be regulated properly. That will give us a big tick on being able to get into the Olympics.
Do you worry about these other entities coming in? There's $15 million in that World Pickleball League or whatever that's coming in, and these other, and where that maybe they'll have their own rule changes, or maybe players will jump ship, or is there concern there? Or maybe, the big thing that Steve Kuhn now has his own, he's helping with a fund, and the talk with that is, he mentioned that 50 years ago, badminton and table tennis, was huge in England and not in Asia, and now he's trying to push obviously pickleball in that same manner. Is that competition to you guys? Do you want to work hand in hand with those people? Is it your goal to expand to like what's the plan there?
Yeah, we definitely have international expansion, on the horizon. It's something we've already kind of dipped our toe into. We have, a league in Australia. We've announced 5 events internationally next year. So yeah, it's definitely, we see growth out there. In me in particular, I lived in Asia for 12 years. I spent 12 years of my career out there. So I have a lot of ties to Asia. So yeah, I'm all for it. I think Asia has huge growth potential. I was out there this summer, and I played in Bali and Singapore, and got to know the people who run the organizations out there. So yeah, it's definitely something that I'm acutely aware of, and I think it makes perfect business sense to go there. But first things first, we got to get this right. We got to get all the processes, the certifications, the regulations, all to a certain standard, and then as it cascades out, we'll be in really good shape to grow it and it not be messy.
So you don't feel like it's this massive arms race and it's first to market. It's a matter of doing it right and then growing from there. Like,
yeah, I think what happened was that in the U.S., I think we've set the standard, and people have seen the opportunity and it prove out that it's no longer such a risk for Asia to invest. Whereas 5 years ago in the U.S., putting down $1 million for a facility was kind of crazy, and shout out to Chicken and Pickle for doing it. They went and invested and really believed in what they were doing, and it panned out for them. And that's amazing for them. And now you see a lot of, competitors coming into the marketplace because they are the ones who forged ahead and proved it to be.
Love it, Jason. We are a part of this Discord that is not a good place to be. A lot of people just complain, but we're there. And we told people that we were going to be talking to you, and some people chimed in with some questions. And so if it's all right with you, we have a few hard-hitting questions. If you can't or don't want to answer it, feel free to move on, or you're really good at just kind of blowing it off. But one of the first questions is, so they say, when brands pay ridiculous fees to UPA-A for testing, who collects the funds? Does it go to UPA as in the same bank account as PPA MLP holding company?
No, it is a separate entity, separate, business entity. It's under the umbrella, but we have our own business.
Okay.
So yeah, and we have bills to pay. Obviously, we built up an entire lab down in South Florida through PPL. I should say PPL did, but they've spent an enormous amount of money that needs to be,
All right, here's another one. Why is PPL involved at all? They are literally a middleman. If outside engineers like those from UMass were brought in, then why not directly to UPA-A? Essentially, PPL is just adding additional overhead.
PPL is the lab that does the testing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So UMass is contracted through, or the baseball research lab at UMass Lowell is contracted through PPL. They don't work with governing bodies, right? They can't. It's like, for whatever reason, academia, setting the standards, writing the STMs will not contact directly to a governing body. So USAP, they contract out to NTS. That is a lab, but they're not writing the standards. And so that's what UMass is doing. They're writing the standards.
Okay. I'm not a manufacturer, and I don't know if you guys have publicly announced this or even if you're certain of it, but the rumors are that next year the fees will be increasing significantly. Somebody said, if UPA-A's yearly fees are to weed out irrelevant or unprofessional brands, then why not create a lower barrier of entry but higher penalties for brands not meeting UPA standards? Makes it seem more like a money grab than ethical practice.
Yeah, so we're definitely looking at pricing. That's not been established yet, and it's not going up because there is no certification until now.
So whatever the price is, you're not increasing, you're just setting it.
It didn't exist. So yeah, we'll establish what that price is, and that will be the price.
Are you concerned about, some of these smaller manufacturers I mean, in essence, being pushed out, or is that not really a concern because they're probably not big players on the pro level?
Yeah, I mean, we see, there's about 30, 35 paddles that are being played at the professional level week in, week out. So we're not talking about everybody anyway. And so there's a very small, like USAP has 2,000 paddle manufacturers that they, accept money from, right? And that drives a huge amount of revenue for them. I think it's, half of their revenue. So we're not going to have that, big pie, and we can't keep up. We can't enforce and monitor 2,000 different paddle companies, and we don't want to do that. We're just worried about the pro game. We're making sure that we enforce and we monitor and check and test and have the right rules in place to hold people accountable.
Gotcha.
Will UPA ever have a Hall of Fame?
Are you wanting to be in it?
No, we talked about the USA. Well, we just talked about the USAP Hall of Fame and how they inducted Kyle Yates, who's 27 years old. And I don't know, I just thought that was interesting that what the requirements are. And I know that there's the NBA.
You are really against that nomination.
Well, it's just weird. It just shows you how much pickleball is in its infancy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, normally players would be retired before they.
Yeah, exactly.
But Kyle's pretty much as OG as it gets, and
For sure, but we've learned in other sports.
You heard it here first. Jimmy does not like Kyle Yates.
That has nothing to do with it. I don't even know Kyle Yates. He's probably one of the few people I don't know. But in the NBA, longevity doesn't equal a Hall of Fame career. Because you played 20 years doesn't make you a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but he was a number one player.
Yeah, number one player when freaking Lucy, that was 75 years old, was playing. Senior, you were playing with freaking Beth Bellamy. That's when he was number one.
Me and Beth Bellamy would do great. She just started recently too, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. That's those are the. I'm just asking. It's just I mean, again, there's arguments to be made for everybody, right? There's the argument that Babe Ruth didn't play against Negro League players, and there's arguments that can be made. Exactly. You don't know who that is, but the point is I'm just asking if that's something that UPA is gonna.
No, we're not going to get into the Hall of Fame game.
I feel like they would do a better job because they would actually have standards in place.
Maybe. This is a safe space, Jason. We know Pardo very, very well. How is it working with Connor Pardo?
Yeah, you know what? I'm thoroughly impressed with Connor, to be perfectly honest. He's quite.
Is he in the room with you? Blink twice.
Blink twice if you're safe.
No, Connor's awesome. I genuinely, and I think you see it in his interviews. The guy is incredibly composed. He really
extremely polished.
A virtually impossible job, right? He's managing not just the tour of the PPA, but also inheriting MLP and bringing that on in the ownership groups. And as we know, these are all very, these are a bunch of alpha men and women who are incredibly successful. They're incredibly opinionated. It's a complicated, undertaking. And so there's so many moving pieces in his ability to kind of handle it all. And at the same time, have a wife and 4 kids under 4 is just off the so it's really impressive.
That's the Utah in him.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I could tell you that.
Can you so here's a question, and this probably isn't one for you to answer, but someone said, why is the kitchen so obsessed with the dink but not vice versa?
It's a good question. Did I write that?
No, I'm just curious. Jason's going to plead the fifth on this one.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
You don't want to lose that little bit of equity you have left. Are you and Jared still close? Are you guys still friends?
Yeah, we're friends. We were always friends. We were never best buds. Me and his older brother are very good friends. So he was the little brother. I was,
Did you leave because you didn't like the headquarters?
No, I didn't even get there for the headquarters. I've never even seen the headquarters.
You haven't?
No.
I mean, from the pictures, it looks great.
It's good, doesn't it?
ivy on the wall. Like, yeah, that's a nice touch.
Yeah, not bad.
What's your guys' status with Selkirk at this moment? Because they were the ones that drafted that email 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks ago. Are you guys speaking terms, or are they still a little bit frustrated with the process?
Yeah, no, they came to the meeting in Atlanta. We had a good chat and we spent 6+ hours with them and everybody. I mean, there were 11 different companies there. But yeah, I think it went well. And I know how frustrated they have been. And I think it goes vice versa. But we're hopefully, walking in the right direction, and I hope they see that. And I think they did. I mean, that's what it was communicated to us, and I'll take that at face value. So we'll get it right. I mean, that's what we're all, there's no
They were mad at MLP too, though. So maybe Selkirk.
Should we get them on the phone right now? And
maybe Selkirk just gets mad easy because they were mad about the white paddle bans, and maybe they're just those people, What's the saying? Like, if you run into one asshole, then okay, but if you run into multiple, you're the asshole. I don't know. Can we say that?
It's a serious business. Everybody's fighting for their for their livelihoods and their businesses, and I respect that. I think they've done an amazing job. I think they're an amazing company, and we want to make sure that we don't do things that are going to put any of these paddle companies at risk, and we want fair, level playing field. We want to make the game better, and that's what we're trying to do.
Can you say the 11 that were there?
Yeah, it was. So there's a.
It was Onyx, Vulcan, Paddletech, Selkirk. I don't know the other.
Pro XR.
And then the little guys, it's Ace. 60 did not make it. They're in Australia, and Volaire missed his flight, so he didn't.
Oh. I bet Julian Arnold had something to do with that.
But I mean, that's Onyx. I don't know.
Okay. But like some of those, like obviously some of the smaller ones. Oh, Gearbox was there?
Yeah. In 2025, next year, so that's in 3-4 months or so,
yeah.
That's when the implementation of these new rules should go into effect. Is that right?
Certification will begin right around there, and we will have a window for everyone to get on board. Yeah, and then we'll have some processes in place to make sure that starting at 2025, we'll understand what everyone's playing with. So,
what do you think about the players that were openly admitting to freezing or putting their paddles in the fridge?
Yeah, I mean, I have an interesting point of view on this. I don't have any issue with it. It's no different than if you live in Minnesota and you leave your paddles in your car. Doesn't matter. Like, that's just the elements. We test. We.
Once again, it goes back to intent, though. They're intending to skirt around the rules. It's not Minnesota because we're in California and it's hot outside.
Yeah,
so there's zero reason for them to put it in.
Yeah, but we have a thermometer at the site, and we take the temperature of every paddle. So if it's cold,
what if in Daescu's country they don't wash their hands and that's why his paddle had sticky stuff on it?
That's a different issue. No, but I mean, listen, we temperature check them all, so we understand.
No, it's not.
In his country,
they
don't wash his hands. Are you kidding me?
What if? Again,
but you're alluding to that.
Okay,
cancel
real
this
quick,
guy.
Can you tell us what was on his paddle? What the substance actually was? Did you ever determine that?
I need more spin. I need it.
Yeah, we did test on it. We do know what it is, but I'm not going to go there.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
What that ruined your next question?
No. Yeah, I mean, I've seen his paddle recently and similar colors as before.
Well.
Yeah, no, I've seen it also, and it's what's happening with
it's got to be the fading or something like that because it looks very similar to when it was illegal.
Yeah, it was the when it was illegal, it was something significantly different. I can attest to that. I touched it. It was.
I touched it.
But I think what's happening is that the residue from the ball is coming off because it's a nanotack and it's almost gripping onto the ball. Kind of like how we take erasers on our carbon fiber paddles, but because of the mixture of the nanotack and the residue of the ball, it's looking kind of grubby.
Where did that money go to? Because he had a fine.
Where does that fine money go? Like the NBA sends it to charity, NFL charities.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And
Does it go to 4 kids under 4 for Connor Pardo?
I saw Pardo flying private the next week.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great thing. We have Pickleball Cares, which we're working with and trying to find ways that we can, grow the sport internationally to underprivileged, parts of developing nations. So no, it hasn't been allocated yet, but certainly we want to, build that
Just
up.
collecting that for 4.5% interest right now.
Killing it now. It's $50,200.
Exactly. Any other questions, Jimmy?
No, Jason, I appreciate you coming on. And
is there anything else you would like to address or give us some updates in your life or your job, some big milestones or anything like that?
No, I'm excited to be in this position. I think it's an exciting time to be in the sport, and there's a lot to do. And I know it's not perfect, and we're building, one step of each day we take a step forward, and, we get a ton of blowback all the time on, what we're doing. But I think that we continue to prove that we're doing the right things the right way, and slowly but surely we're going to win that trust. And that's all we can do.
do you feel like it's a little bit of a thankless job? Yeah, are you having regrets?
No, and I don't need the thanks. It's okay. I know what we're doing, and I think that when I talk to people one-on-one, I can look people in the eye and feel good about what we're doing, why we're doing it.
And you got away from Jared, so it's win-win.
I didn't say that.
Hey, we had one more question from Canman in the Discord. He said, how long till UPA consolidates USA Pickleball?
Oh, is that a goal?
No, not consolidation, but I talk to those guys. It's not like we're
You're trying to find out their weaknesses to attack?
No. I like I said at the beginning when I was doing kitchen stuff, I knew everybody, right? I talked to everybody, and so I know Carl, I know Mike, I know the guys over there, and I don't perceive this as a war. We have a job to do, and we're gonna go get it done. We're gonna do it the right way, and then we'll take it from there. But ideally, yeah, that'd be great if we could have some kind of I wouldn't say consolidation, but some kind of the certifications could look very similar, so it's not a complete mess out there. But the big thing that we're doing that I don't think they are is that we're doing destructive testing. So we'll understand the life cycle of paddle, and that's important because we know these things change considerably. So,
Gotcha.
All right. Anything else, Jimmy?
No, I don't think so. Appreciate it, Jason.
Maybe we could do these once every 6 months or a year, just little updates with Jason and UPA and all things pickleball.
Yeah, for sure.
What tournaments do you go out to? Because you don't go out to every single one.
I don't. I was there in New York. Saw you in New York. Saw you in Bristol. Saw you in Atlanta. So
we're still going to a lot. You gonna be in Virginia Beach?
Every time I see you, I say, "Where's Jimmy?"
Yeah.
See?
He should buy a shirt.
You gonna be in Dallas?
Yeah, I'll be in Dallas.
Okay.
We will have a pretty sweet podcast studio or something like that. So
Really?
maybe we can get you on for another 5 or 10 minutes.
Little did I know.
Yeah. All right, Jason, if you can stay on afterwards, just to wrap this up. Also, where do people stay up to date with you, or do you not really care for that?
Oh, yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Spus44. That's where I.
Do you tweet a lot of the new rules or breaking news or highlights?
I tend to just talk pickleball there, but it's not really a place to break news. But we have
Jimmy breaks news there all the time.
Yeah.
UPA-A.UnitedPickleball.com, and that's where you find all the rules, regulations, testing, all that kind of stuff is available there.
Cool. Perfect. All right. Thanks, Jason. Make sure to stay on real quick, and we will talk to you hopefully soon.
Thanks, guys.